This is a 964 generation Porsche 911. Now, I've already gone ahead and welded wide body flares into this car. They were Porsche 930 flares, so they didn't fit right. So I had to make custom mounts for the 964 trim to make it look OEM plus. You cannot buy 964 turbo flares, so we made do. This car is almost perfect. I love a wide body 911, but there's one major issue. It's a cabriolet. Cabriolets should not be turbo wide, in my opinion. I do not like cabriolets. So we have this coupe roof from a 911 and we're gonna put it on this 964. Many of you are thinking, that's unsafe. There's no possible way that you could put a roof on this car and make it be truly safe in a rollover. That's not 100% true, however, it would take a ton of work. So to get around that, we're going to also put a roll bar into this car as an extra level of safety. Also keep in mind, this car is a cabriolet and started as a cabriolet, so it was already designed to be rolled over without a roof, so it'll be fine. So the first step here is to look at what we got and figure out what we're going to do to get this roof installed. I'm a big, strong boy. If I keep saying that to myself, it'll make it true. Let's clean this thing off so I can get a good look at it now. So this is the roof that we're working with. It was obviously cut off by like a scrapyard, junkyard. It's very roughly cut off. We're gonna trim back and we'll be good to go. You also notice that this is a sunroof car. The intention is not to leave the sunroof in, and we'll fill that in later. So on a vehicle, your A-pillar is extremely important, especially on a cabriolet. This is the A-pillar right here for those who do not know. That is your protection in a rollover, because if you didn't have an A-pillar, it'd be a flat line here, and you'd also be a flat line when the car rolled over. So the initial plan right now was just to kind of not touch the A-pillar. We'll attach to the A-pillar up here, but not worry about sectioning it in along here. Now, like I already mentioned, there's going to be a roll bar. We're gonna make a roll bar for this car. We're not just gonna buy a bolt-in roll bar, we're actually gonna make one that is super sound. The owner of this car does things with race cars for a living. He knows how to build a really strong cage. He knows how to build a really strong car that's safe and efficient, and we'll be working with him on that roll bar, don't worry. So when it comes to unibody cars, it's not black and white. When you have a truck, on a truck you have your frame rails, then you have the body that bolts to it, and the frame rails and stuff are the main structure. Whereas on a unibody car, you have layers of structure. For example, if you look at this pillar right here, you'll notice there's multiple layers of heavy structure working together to ensure that this vehicle is strong. This vehicle is getting a roll bar. We don't need this vehicle to be structurally sound. We just need to have a cosmetic roof attached to it and turn it into a badass coupe. So knowing that, that means like the inner structure here and all the layers that involve in the pillars, we're not going to go through and attach every single layer. We're gonna worry about the main meat of the exterior. Very much like if you had a cabriolet and you bought a hard top and bolted it on top of the car. It'll be akin to that, just not removable and it'll look seamless. You know, that thing that people who buy hard tops want their cars to actually look like. So the roof is sitting here ready to be cut down and cleaned up. But before we do that, let's work on the body. The actual chassis itself has parts laying inside of it I need to remove. I'm gonna remove the driver's seat. I also wanna remove the front glass because if we're gonna be welding up here, we don't want the glass to get any kind of danger. The owner also supplied us with the necessary components to convert this door from being a cabriolet door to a coupe door, which means it has the correct glass, and I think it also has the window surround that drops in. We'll need to do that as well at some point to make sure everything aligns, because that'll kind of ensure that the roof is lined up exactly where it needs to be. If I can gap that correctly, the roof is correct. But yeah, we're gonna start with just stripping the car down and removing the glass and the windshield wipers. I highly recommend marking where the wipers originally were on the glass before you remove wipers, because then when you put it back together, you know how to clock the wiper arms. They just have little like knurls to lock them in place. So you could actually put it all in the wrong place, and then it's timed wrong, run the wipers, and then the wipers can just run into the cowl and scratch your paint. So it's important to mark where you're starting. Wiggle it back and forth and lift. It's out now. Now you can also see the urethane that was holding it in. Now let's get all this junk out and come up with our plan. Junk's out of the interior, and while I was doing that and also off camera, Tony and I discussed what we're going to do to attach this roof in a way that is efficient, looks good, and is kind of right. So here's what we came up with. Originally, I was saying that we were not going to touch the A-pillar and just kind of attach to it, but we realized we can't do that. And the main reason is this incline right here is not the same as a coupe. It's actually more raked down. And also the backside of this is much bulkier than a coupe. And the client wants the car to look like a coupe with the trim in the inside as well. This won't jive with that. So rather than trying to like splice in like a line across here and have a really, really, really long weld that needs a lot of metal finishing, the idea is instead to follow this line straight across off the edge and cut that off, and then re-weld at the pillar right there. Doing that would ensure that we have the exact window profile as before, so the glass fits in. And if I do the same cut on both cars, then it will definitely line up exactly the way that it should. Because yes, this profile right here is not right, like the rake, but this line is identical on both cars, so I could cut that same line right here, made it up, and it'll line up perfectly. So with a very well engineered roll bar, not a safety issue, which leaves the B pillar and then what we'll call the C pillar in the back. The idea is to attach right about here-ish. You have like this lip that runs to the edge of the window where the rubber and trim kind of sets in. We need to retain that. So if we go like an inch down further and then weld it on that length on the outside, we're good to go. And then bring it back here. These spot welds in the engine lid area, like the actual engine bay, they're identical. So I could just drill out the spot welds in the car back here, if I lift the deck lid here, drill out these spot welds, and it should pretty much locate itself. So what I need to do now to prep for all that is cut away anything that'll get in the way of laying that roof onto this car. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut just shy of this line, just like it has on the other quarter panel, because we're not gonna use this line the whole way back. Then we're gonna cut straight back here, drill out the spot welds, get rid of anything that's gonna be in the way. Back here, I'm just gonna use a cutoff wheel and just cut a straight line. Same thing for this flange here. I'm just gonna cut off wheel it straight off, should be fine. Now on a cabriolet, you have these mounts right here, which are for the seat belts. Well, since we're doing a roll bar and a harness bar and all that stuff, so we take the mounts off here and instead put mounts in the roll bar itself. That's plenty good. The bulkhead right here is different between a coupe and a cabriolet. I'm just gonna work around it for now. So we just lop off the seatbelt mount and work around it. When we go to the inside to do the interior work, we'll deal with that later. I'm not worried about the interior right now. All I'm worried about is getting the exterior skin to fit the car correctly with the right proportions, the right measurements. I'm gonna take a lot of measurements before I do any cutting. So all the details out of the way. The first thing I'm gonna do is start from the front and work my way back. So we're gonna cut the pillar right here on both the car and also on the roof over there. But before I do any of that, I'm gonna take some measurements. I'm gonna get center here. I'm gonna measure the distance from here to the cowl, measure a couple different spots, just to make sure when I put that roof on, this is gonna be exactly right. I just want that to be a nice straight cut through, except for right here. So it's going to basically be a straight cut through here, aside from the flange here. I kind of like to keep that square. And what I did was I made a tape pattern here I can peel off, and then I'll just lay it right here in the exact same orientation, so then I can do the exact same cut the whole way through. And because it's a tape pattern, I can flip it and do the same to this side. That should ensure me getting close enough to be able to weld that together. we'll see what happens. Did a preliminary test fit real quick, and yep, that looks promising. Again, I don't expect perfection. I expect some kind of wiggliness and gap to fill. I know a guy who does metalwork, and he's kind of okay at it, so I think we'll be okay. You're up next, buddy. A cabriolet hates to see me coming. I'm gonna cut it about here, I think. Let's go the whole way down through and get this out of the way. I'm also going to go ahead and cut off this flange right here because this flange is not correct. Unfortunately, that flange is also what holds the quarter panel on. So it has to be reattached eventually. The new flange is where the coupe glass goes into. So I'm gonna have to engineer a way to attach it on the inside because this inner bulkhead's different from a cabriolet, but we'll get into that later. For right now, I'm just worried about the outer skin. So I'm gonna cut this back and we'll lap over top and then we'll eventually cut it back and butt weld it, but gotta get this out of the way first. That side's done. I'll make the side a lot faster for you guys. Haha, that was a lot faster.
I do need to 3D print inserts for them so I can wash my car.
Inserts of what? Oh yeah, because where's the Nakaduck go to?
My butt. It cools my butt under the...
Wait, it runs all the way to the seat?
Yeah.
So like on a rainy day, you're just gonna get like swap ass?
Yeah, basically.
All right, since I'm going to be patching into the flange underneath the engine lid here, I'm gonna pop this bad boy off and get it out of the way. The ground over here for the engine lid. Porsche likes to put things in awkward spots. Hello, shims. Goodbye, shims. Now that the engine lid has been removed, and I also dropped the hinges down, they have gas struts to keep the, way the engine lid up, I can move to the next step, which is removing this panel right here. This is like the tie between, the engine lid flange and also the back edge of the cabriolet top. This changes for the coupe. What's important about this edge is I'm going to use it to help locate the roof because this edge here is identical. So if I preserve the flange behind that it's spot welded to, I can just drill out these spot welds, pop this off, and then pop on the new one. I'll have to cut off the flange up here, but I want to keep this lower flange if possible to locate it, and then we'll tie it in the corners just like they did from the factory. Also, for those who are unaware, if you look in here, it's kind of hard to see, but there's actually brass here from the factory. They braze it right here, and it's really frustrating to work with. I don't really know why they braze it, but they've done that for a very long time in all the models. So we're going to probably be cutting that out at the end and replacing it with steel because I don't like that area. It was definitely like that for assembly being easier for them, but we're going for longevity and custom work, so we don't really need to rebraze right there. So yeah, we're gonna work on getting these spot welds drilled out or ground out to remove this panel and clean it all up. And then the body should be pretty close to ready to have the roof set on top of it. And of course, to fit the roof, we're gonna have to do a lot of cutting to remove what we don't need. Like, we're not gonna use this parcel shelf. I'm gonna preserve it in case we do end up transferring it later, but it's gonna be in the way because this is the outer skin that really matters. We're gonna drill out these spot welds, remove this inner structure. We'll go into that later. So right now though, let's remove this bad boy right here. The engine is eventually going to be coming out because we're gonna do some work to the engine. And also, I'm going to be tying the roll bar into the strut taps, which are in the back of the engine bay here. So I can't get to them right now. But for now, I'm going to just cover the engine to keep it safe because I don't want to damage any of the components while we're working on all this cutting and grinding and welding above it. I'm gonna cut a slit along here first to remove this, but leave the flange behind for the moment, just so I can kind of look in here and see what's going on. There we go. That's better. All right, so this rear parcel shelf area is officially stripped down and ready to be spot welded to. I have a couple spots I gotta deal with, like right here where I kind of ground through a bit. I'll deal with that later. Up next is to go over to the roof here, and we're gonna go ahead and start tearing this thing down so I can put it over top of this thing. So the plan here is to kind of cut out some of the interior parts that are not going to be needed right now, which also includes the parcel shelf here. Now, the coupe does have a different parcel shelf than the cabriolet. You notice the coupe here is kind of flat up across the back. It does not have studs here. There's no bolt holes, whereas the cabriolet has a bit of more of a bulge here, and there's also like these studs to mount the hardware for the convertible top. The other thing about this too, is I think because this is a certain intake system on the car, it's bulged as well because it's like right up against the engine underneath here. If I use the coupe, it wouldn't actually fit, I don't think. Yeah, if I use the coupe one here, I think this would be hitting the engine. I'm not 100% sure on that, but the reason that I'm deciding not to transfer the parcel shelf is because, again, it's a lot of extra work that does not need to be done, but you can still put together an interior for this car that looks very good, and transferring that's gonna add dozens of hours probably. So instead, what we're gonna do, so I cut off this area on the cabriolet and it spot welds to the parcel shelf. I think this area is identical. So I'm gonna drill out the spot welds here so I can transfer this whole area in one piece over to there. And then like I mentioned too, we're gonna also locate with this flange back here. So I gotta remove the back side of this where there's like the parcel shelf, which again, that's what I was talking about. We got to remove that. And then we'll go through here and cut it back, but we're going to leave overlap skin compared to what we cut off on the 964. And then these inner bulkheads to the inside of the window channels and such, they're going to get cut off entirely. So I'm just going to cut right inside the flange here. And then we're going to make something to patch that in on the cabriolet. Well, what will be a coupe. I'm realizing that was basically just a lot of words to say. We're transcribing the skin of the coupe roof to the cabriolet, and then we'll be making a lot of the sheet metal for the inside attachments. You'll see in a little bit. Ah. Alrighty, so I got the back all ready to go to be plopped onto the car. That was a lot of really stinky grinding and stuff. I had to use the torch to get a lot of the undercoating out of the pillars, but we're good now. So what's next is time to use our pattern here and cut the pillar back on both sides. And then we're gonna set it onto that bad boy and see how she fits. Important to note, we're just doing the preliminary fit up after we cut these pillars off. It's gonna still need a lot of work to actually fit and a lot of hurdles to figure out, but we're very close to putting the roof onto the car, and I'm very excited about that. And with a little bit of, just a little bit of work, we're turning this into a coupe, and the world needs more Porsche coupes. It's like sunroof wiring. Yeah, which we don't need. You'll have that on these bigger jobs. So much lighter, you know? It's like half the weight, you know? All right, so we got the roof on. It fits pretty well. I got to do a little bit more work right here to get it to sit a little bit better in the front. And then back here, I ran into an issue with a little bit of oversight. Well, not oversight, just me being protective. You'll see we have contact between the 964 flange here and the roof flange. I'm gonna trim back the roof flange to match the shape, give or take, because the goal is just to get it to fit and then sleeve over top, and then we'll, make some metal to go between to patch it together. So I'm not really worried about trying to get a perfect fit. I just wanna make sure that the roof itself, the profile, the silhouette is correct. And we might even go a little bit further with our measurements and actually 3D scan the roof once it's cleat-coated in place, just to make sure, if reference off another 911, just make sure that's like perfect, because I want this to be perfect. If it doesn't look right, we're gonna have issues. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm gonna scribe on here to get this to sit down lower, and once I do that, the rear end here will pop down and mate to the original 964 flange here, because right now you can see we have like a whole inch of space. So let's do that. It's a couple hours later. I didn't bother filming because we were taking the roof on and off the car like a dozen times of trimming and fitting and trimming and fitting. I think this last fitment here will be the final test to see if it fits correctly before we do our scribing and final cuts. I ended up gutting everything out of here because it was just colliding with the body. There's just too many things touching each other, so I made more and more room. And this area back here for sure is gonna need to be cut out completely to be able to set the back end down the whole way. So that's gonna hold it up a little bit, but let's put that on here and see what happens. Okay, we fit it on and took it right back off. I just didn't film it again because it's happening so many times. What I need to do is, so this is the outline here of the roof overlap. I need to trim the red body back to close to that edge so that it just stops colliding, because right now, like these corners here, there's in the way of fitting the roof. So I'm gonna mark them like that far in and trim them the whole way back to the back. And then back here, I'm actually going to trim it up against the edge, give or take, It's gonna be a rough guesstimate, so it can really suck in and all fit. Because I do not want this thing to be misaligned at all. It needs to fit perfectly. If it doesn't, it's gonna look weird and not be right, and I won't sleep at night knowing that I made a car wrong, so. So there you have it. Tony pulled the engine out. We have the roof fitted up now. It fits in the right profile correctly on the car. So now we're ready to begin figuring out the roll bar, which is going to run all the way back to the strut tops back here. It's going to be complex. It's going to be way over engineered. It's going to be super strong. But we're finally completely set up for the next step. This is a car that we've been chipping at in the background for some time now. The reason that this video came out this week is because, well, Tony was on vacation last week. I was super sick this week and couldn't work. And then next week, I'm going to be in Iceland on vacation. So next week, there won't be a video. I'm taking a little break, guys. I'm sorry. If you find me, I'll give you a crisp high five. Otherwise, there's no video next week, guys. But don't worry, the following week, we're going to hit the ground running with more work on the projects in the shop. So thanks for watching, guys. And as always, thank you for hanging in the shop with us.